Imagine this, a night of opulence, where the rich and powerful gather to celebrate a union destined for the headlines. Crystal chandeliers, silk gowns, and a millionaire groom who seems to have it all. But beneath the glamour lies a cruel secret, a prank so humiliating it could destroy a life or rewrite an empire. What happens when the person you least expect holds the key to your downfall? Stay with us, because this story of betrayal, revenge, and redemption will leave you speechless. Hit that play button, because you won't believe what happens next. The Grandview estate sparkled under the late summer sun, its marble pillars and sprawling gardens a testament to wealth beyond imagination. At the heart of it all was Ethan Caldwell, a 30-year-old billionaire whose charm and ambition had made him a legend in New York's elite circles. With his jet black hair, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could disarm anyone, Ethan was the man who had everything: a tech empire, a penthouse overlooking Manhattan, and now a fiancée, Victoria Langley, whose beauty matched her family's old money status. Their wedding was the event of the year, a spectacle of luxury that promised to outshine every gala the city had ever seen. But in the shadows of this grandeur worked a young woman named Lila Monroe. At 23, Lila was the quiet heartbeat of the estate, a black woman with sharp, observant eyes and a grace that went unnoticed. She'd been a maid for the Caldwells for 3 years. She cleaned the crystal vases, polished the silver, and served meals to guests who never bothered to learn her name. Lila lived in a modest room in the staff quarters, her life a world apart from the glitz she maintained. She was invisible until she wasn't. 2 nights before the wedding, Ethan hosted his bachelor party in the estate's oak-paneled lounge. The room was thick with cigar smoke and laughter as his groomsmen, a group of Ivy League buddies, traded stories over vintage whiskey. Ethan, loosened by a few drinks, leaned back in his leather chair, his tie undone. "You know what would be hilarious?" he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Inviting the maid to the wedding." His best man, Julian, raised an eyebrow. "The maid? You mean Lila? The one who barely says a word?" "Exactly," Ethan replied, grinning. "Imagine her in that fancy hall, surrounded by all this." He gestured to the room, then laughed. "It'd be the prank of the century." "Come on, man," Julian said, shifting uncomfortably. "That's a bit cruel, don't you think?" "Cruel?" Ethan scoffed. "It's just a joke. She'll be flattered to be there. Trust me." The next morning, a gold-trimmed invitation arrived at Lila's door, delivered by the estate's butler, Mr. Hargrove. His lips twitched as he handed it over. "Mr. Caldwell himself requested your presence," he said, his tone laced with something Lila couldn't quite place. "Better dress nicely." Lila stared at the card. Her name, Lila Monroe, etched in elegant calligraphy. Her heart raced. Was this a mistake? She'd never been invited to anything at the estate, let alone the wedding of the decade. She traced the embossed letters, her mind spinning. Why would Ethan Caldwell, a man who'd barely spoken to her in 3 years, want her there? A flicker of hope stirred. She'd always admired the Caldwells from afar, their world of glamour a stark contrast to her own. Maybe this was a gesture of kindness, a chance to be seen. But deep down, a quiet voice warned her, "Be careful, Lila. Nothing in this house is ever as it seems." The wedding day arrived, and the Grandview estate transformed into a fairy tale. Chandeliers cast golden light across the ballroom. White orchids cascaded from every surface, and an orchestra played melodies that seemed to float on air. Guests in tailored tuxedos and shimmering gowns mingled, their laughter mingling with the clink of champagne flutes. Victoria, radiant in her ivory gown, glided through the crowd, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Lila stood at the edge of the ballroom, her heart pounding. She'd spent hours preparing, choosing a simple red dress with delicate lace sleeves. Her mother's dress, the only thing she owned that felt worthy of such an occasion. Her hair was neatly braided, her face free of makeup, her only adornment the dignity she carried like armor. As she stepped into the hall, heads turned. Whispers followed. A woman in a sapphire gown nudged her companion, murmuring, "Who's she?" A man smirked, assuming she was a +1 who'd wandered into the wrong crowd. Ethan spotted her from across the room, his smile sharp and predatory. "Lila," he called out, his voice cutting through the music. The orchestra softened, and every eye turned to her. "You made it." Lila froze, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I did," she said softly, her voice steady despite the weight of 100 stares. "Well, come on in," Ethan said, striding toward her. He slung an arm around her shoulders, the gesture overly familiar, almost mocking. "This is your big night too, right?" The crowd tittered, some laughing nervously, others exchanging confused glances. Lila's cheeks burned, but she forced a small smile. She wasn't on the guest list, had no assigned seat, and the waiters passed her by without offering a drink. She stood alone, an outsider in a sea of wealth, her presence a curiosity that no one quite understood. As the night wore on, the whispers grew sharper. "Is she a friend of the bride?" "No, she's the help." "What's she doing here?" Lila held her head high, her eyes scanning the room, memorizing every face that mocked her. She told herself she'd leave soon, that she'd thank Ethan for the invitation and slip away. But Ethan had other plans. The moment came during dessert, as the towering wedding cake was wheeled into the center of the ballroom. 7 tiers of ivory frosting, adorned with gold leaf and sugar roses. It was a masterpiece that drew gasps from the crowd. Ethan and Victoria stood beside it, ready for the ceremonial cut, the photographer's flash poised to capture the moment. Ethan's eyes found Lila in the crowd. "Lila," he called, his voice dripping with false warmth. "Come up here. Have a first bite." The room stilled. Lila's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but her feet moved forward, drawn by the weight of expectation. The crowd parted, phones already out, recording. She reached the cake, her hands trembling slightly. "Go on," Ethan said, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Just lean in." Lila hesitated, her eyes meeting his. There was something cold in his gaze, something that made her heart sink. Before she could step back, Ethan's hand moved to the back of her head. With a swift, deliberate motion, he pushed her face into the cake. The room erupted. Gasps turned to laughter, phones flashed, and someone let out a delighted squeal. Frosting smeared across Lila's face, clinging to her hair, dripping onto her mother's dress. The sponge crumbled under her cheek, the sweetness suffocating. Ethan held her there for a moment, chuckling. "Come on, it's just a joke." "We finally released her." Lila stood slowly, the cake sliding off her chin. The room fell silent, the laughter dying as quickly as it had begun. Even Victoria looked uneasy, her smile faltering. Lila's eyes locked onto Ethan's, calm and unyielding. She reached for the tablecloth, wiping her face with deliberate care, each movement precise, composed. "You'll regret this before the night is over," she said, her voice soft but sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her ruined dress trailing behind her. The crowd parted, no one daring to meet her gaze. The whispers started immediately. "Did you see that? Was that really necessary? Who is she?" Ethan laughed it off, waving a hand. "Relax, it's just a prank. She'll get over it." But he didn't know who Lila really was. He didn't know the truth was already unraveling, set in motion by a letter that would change everything. And as the night ended, the first videos hit the internet. Asterisk millionaire groom humiliates maid at wedding. Who is the mystery woman? Asterisk. Asterisk, what did Lila mean? What secret was she hiding? And how would Ethan pay for his cruelty? Keep watching, because the truth is about to turn this fairy tale into a nightmare. Asterisk. The next morning, Ethan woke in the master suite, still basking in the glow of his perfect wedding. Over breakfast, he recounted the cake incident to Victoria, laughing as he mimicked Lila's stunned expression. "She should have been flattered," he said, sipping his coffee. "A maid at our wedding? That's a story she'll tell forever." Victoria forced a smile, her unease growing. She'd seen the videos online, the comments calling Ethan cruel, heartless. "Maybe you went too far," she said cautiously. "Too far." Ethan scoffed. "She's nobody. She'll be back mopping floors tomorrow. But across the estate, in a quiet office tucked away in the West Wing, a different story was unfolding. At 10 a.m., a lawyer named Mr. Grayson sat at a polished mahogany table, a locked briefcase before him. 5 people were present. Ethan, still smirking. Mr. Grayson, composed and unreadable. 2 witnesses from the law firm. And Lila, standing tall in a navy blue dress, her face clean, her hair neatly styled. There was no trace of the humiliated girl from the night before. Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "I didn't realize we were letting the staff into private business meetings," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Mr. Grayson didn't flinch. "She's not staff, Mr. Caldwell." He opened the briefcase, revealing a sealed envelope with a wax stamp. "This is the final testament of Mr. Theodore Caldwell, your late grandfather." Ethan's smirk faded. Theodore Caldwell, the man who'd built the family empire, had died 2 years ago, leaving Ethan the estate and a trust fund that ensured his lavish lifestyle. Or so he thought. Mr. Grayson broke the seal and began to read. "To my grandson, Ethan, you have been given every opportunity, yet I've watched you treat others with disdain. Your arrogance has overshadowed the character I hoped you'd cultivate. Therefore, you will receive only the trust fund already disbursed. No property, no further assets." Ethan shot to his feet. "What? That's impossible." The lawyer continued, unfazed. "To the one person who showed me kindness in my final years, not out of obligation, but out of humanity, Lila Monroe, I leave the Grandview estate, all properties, all shares in Caldwell Enterprises, and full inheritance rights to the Caldwell Foundation." The room went silent. Ethan's mouth fell open, his face paling. Lila remained still, her expression unreadable. Mr. Grayson handed her a document, signed and notarized. "Your identity was kept confidential at Theodore Caldwell's request for your protection." Ethan's voice trembled with rage. "She's a maid. She's nobody." Mr. Grayson's eyes were cold. "She's also the granddaughter of Marcus Monroe, the man who saved Theodore Caldwell's life during a factory fire 30 years ago. Theodore vowed to care for Marcus's family after his death. Lila was raised in modest circumstances, her connection to the Caldwells hidden to protect her from opportunists. She worked here to stay close to Theodore in his final years, at his request." Lila finally spoke, her voice soft but unwavering. "You were never meant to inherit, Ethan. You just assumed you would. Asterisk, what does this mean for Ethan's empire? How will Lila wield her newfound power? And what secrets from the past are still waiting to be uncovered? Don't look away, because the next twist will break your heart. Asterisk." The news spread like wildfire. By noon, headlines screamed across every major outlet. Former Maid inherits billion-dollar empire after wedding humiliation. Social media exploded with clips of the cake incident, now paired with the shocking revelation of Lila's inheritance. The public turned on Ethan overnight, branding him a villain, a bully who'd mocked the wrong woman. Guests from the wedding sent Lila apologies, some genuine, others laced with desperation to align with the new heir. Victoria, humiliated by the scandal, filed for an annulment within days, unable to face the public scorn. The board of Caldwell Enterprises, sensing Ethan's downfall, stripped him of his executive roles, citing reputational damage. Ethan's world crumbled. The mansion he called home, the cars, the private jets, all belonged to Lila now. He packed a single suitcase, his tailored suits and Rolex watches left behind. As he walked through the grand foyer, now under Lila's ownership, he saw her standing in the hallway. She wore a simple white blouse, her presence commanding despite her quiet demeanor. "I forgave you the moment you pushed my face into that cake," Lila said, her voice steady. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Ethan nodded, unable to meet her eyes. He walked out, the heavy oak doors closing behind him. It was the last time they spoke, but the story wasn't over. Lila's rise revealed more than just her inheritance. In the weeks that followed, she uncovered documents in Theodore's private study, letters between him and Marcus Monroe, her grandfather. They told a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and a promise kept across generations. Marcus had died saving Theodore, and Theodore had vowed to protect his family. Lila's mother, raised in poverty after Marcus's death, had passed away when Lila was a child. Theodore had quietly funded Lila's education, ensuring she had a future, but he'd insisted she work at the estate to understand the weight of his legacy. Lila also found a journal, its pages filled with Theodore's regrets. He'd written about Ethan's growing arrogance, his fear that his grandson would squander the family's legacy. Lila sees people, not titles, he wrote. She is the future. 6 months later, the Grandview estate hosted a charity gala, now organized by Lila. The ballroom, once a stage for her humiliation, was transformed into a celebration of hope. Lila stood at the center, radiant in a white gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. Her confidence filled the room, no longer hidden by a maid's uniform. She took the stage, her voice clear and strong. "Dignity isn't found in wealth or titles," she said. "It's in how we treat those who can't fight back, those we think no one sees. I learned that from my grandfather, a man who gave his life for another. And I learned it from Theodore Caldwell, who saw me when I was invisible." The crowd rose to their feet, their applause thunderous. Some of the same people who'd laughed at her, now clapping for her power, her grace. Lila didn't need their approval. She'd earned her place. But there was one final twist. Among the guests was Julian, Ethan's former best man. He approached Lila after the speech, his expression heavy with guilt. "I should have stopped him that night," he said. "I knew it was wrong." Lila studied him, then nodded. "You can't change the past, Julian, but you can change what you do next." Julian revealed he'd been working with a nonprofit, inspired by Lila's story. He handed her a proposal, a partnership to fund education for underserved communities, in Marcus Monroe's name. Lila smiled, the first genuine smile she'd offered him. "Let's talk," she said, as the gala ended. Lila stood alone on the balcony, looking out over the estate. She thought of her grandfather, her mother, and the long road that had brought her here. She wasn't just the heir to an empire. She was the keeper of a legacy built on sacrifice and redemption. Asterisk, and what became of Ethan? Some say he started over, a humbler man in a quieter life. Others say he's still chasing the glory he lost. But one thing is certain, Lila Monroe's story isn't over. What's next for the woman who turned humiliation into triumph? Stick around, because her next chapter might be even bigger. Asterisk. Asterisk, wow, what a journey. From a cruel prank to a life-changing revelation. Lila's story reminds us that true power comes from within, and that no one is ever as invisible as they seem. If this story moved you, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more tales of betrayal, redemption, and unexpected twists. Let us know in the comments, what would you have done in Lila's shoes? And where in the world are you watching from? We love connecting with you all. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep believing in the power of second chances. See you in the next video. Asterisk.